Vera Diemoz turned 101 in 2012. Born in 1911, Vera was a teenager in the 1920s. For many families, the 1920s were hard, but for Vera's, they were overwhelming. Here, Vera remembers 1925, the year that brought death and disease and nearly broke her family's spirit. Describe that time for me, will you?
The time were very, very hard because, well, at least we had some cattle and we had chickens and everything. And so we got along pretty good right at that time. We were doing pretty good. But naturally, we didn't have the money, see. And beef was very cheap. We used to sell eggs in at Aspen. And they butcher beef. My dad would butcher the beef, and they'd take it to Aspen, to the butcher shops up there in Aspen. The stores would buy the beef. And even the restaurants would buy everything from the farmers.
So that's how your father and mother made some money.
Made extra money on that.
Eggs and beef and...
Oh, yeah. My mother used to take eggs to town to buy flour and sugar and the things that's matches and coal oil and things like that. It was essential that we had because she baked all the bread and everything, and she never bought any of that stuff at that time. She used to know all of it.
Well, how would they get to Aspen? I mean...
Well, with the horse and buggy.
Okay.
Horse and buggy.
So that was quite a ride. That would take a while.
Well, you left about 4 o'clock in the morning to get up there. And then, of course, by the time you'd done the business, why did you come back down to Slumhouse?
And there's the day. That took all day to...
Yeah.
What time would you get home?
Well, sometime we get home about 4 o'clock. Yeah.
So 1925, what led up to the death of your two sisters?
Scarlet fever and diphtheria. Yeah, we all had it. All except my mother and my brother and my dad. They didn't get it. The rest of us all had it. And it was really hard. It was awful hard because we were quarantined for 30 days. We couldn't have anybody come in. We didn't have a telephone to get the call for the groceries. And so anyway, Mr. Ping was our mayor. So he came over. Of course, he talked to us. He was outside by the road. And so he wanted to know what all he could do for us. And then this little old guy that Mr. Thompson, he had a horse and buggy. And then he called up the telephone company to install the phone to our place. So what they did, they put the phone on a piece of board. And then they put it through the window. And so my brother took it and then they hung it on the wall. And then they connected all the wire from the outside. And
because your family was quarantined, they couldn't come in, right?
They couldn't come in. So then that's what they did. They put the phone up that way.
So then you had a way to communicate.
Then we had to have a way to communicate. We could call Mr. Ping and then used to get our groceries, or Mr. Thompson would go over and get our groceries with this little horse and buggy, and we thought that was great. And so he'd always bring us a little sack of candy.
Set the scene for me. Tell me what was happening and how you all came sick and how you discovered you were really sick.
Well, the doctor, the mayor sent the doctor over, and that's how we happened to know that we had scarlet fever.
Were other people getting sick?
Oh, yeah, there's other people in the community that had it. But we were quarantined right away, so I think there was only 2 other children at the school that had it. But and then my oldest sister had it, and one of my brothers was staying up there with her at that time, and so he got it too. And I think what happened, I think my brother Dad brought it from my brother up there at Carbondale, from up at their ranch up at Emma.
So he went to visit them and came back and
yes, and
was sick.
He brought it back. We couldn't have anybody come in. Mortician couldn't come in. They couldn't get him. So my mother dressed the little girls. She put her, and I helped mother dress her, and we laid her out on the couch. And then when the mayor came over and with his pickup, and there was another fellow with him, and they couldn't come in the house, so I had to help carry the the casket out and put it on the bed of the truck. And so when the second one died, why then it was the same thing. We had to, because she died 3 days later. And so I helped dress that and dressed her, and it was the same thing there. I had to help carry her casket out. And that has stayed with me. I cannot go to a child's funeral. That has stayed with me all these years.
How old were you?
I was about 12 years old. No, a little bit more than that. I was about 14. So it was sad. It was very, very sad.
Did it
felt
take...
so bad for my mother.
Yes. Well...
And so then after that, like I said, well, life has to go on. Like Mother said, it was hard on her. And matter of fact, my baby sister my mother was pregnant at that time. And that's when we moved up there by Spring Gulch.
So how did you get through that? How did you get through that hard time?
Well, we all worked stayed together and just held hands and prayed. Like my mother had his kids, we'd always pray every night before we went to bed, and we thanked the good Lord every morning when we got up. Mother'd always make sure that we did for what we had, and that the Lord took. Well, one of the little girls, she had scarlet fever, and her neck swelled up so big that it had cracked. Right
along her neck?
Oh, it's just, this is what I say: love your children, because I tell you, to see a little child being taken away from you in that way, and nobody to take care, to help with them.
Yeah.
It's a very sad thing. We moved up there at Spring Gulch, and it was still hard on my mother.
Were you able to bury the children, or did somebody else have to do that?
My brother and my father, when they walked up, they had to walk up to the cemetery, the old cemetery up on the hill.
Here in
cemetery up at Carbondale.
Oh, at Carbondale, yes.
They walked up there, and they had to stay quite a distance from where they were buried, because they couldn't come down near there or anything. So they buried them, and they, guys, after Mr. Ping's, the mayor left, and the other guy left, and the ones that dug the grave. There was a couple of the guys that they knew us real well. They went up and they dug the grave.
But people couldn't gather near you because for fear of the sickness.
No. Yeah, it was very sad. But as they say, the Lord doesn't give your cross any heavier than you can carry.
Oh, that was a heavy one.
That was a heavy one. And I told Mother, I says, God didn't do right by taking those two little girls away from you. And Mother was just said, we can't condemn God for this. Is this one of those things that happened? Yeah, so anyway, when we moved up to Spring Gulch, then we all we stuck together and worked together and made the best of it. And my mother took in some washing, miner's washing, for scrub on the board.
All by hand.
All by hand. I told her one time, I said, Mama, please don't do that. And I was already 15 years old then, 16. And I told Mother, I said, oh, look how filthy dirty. So then Mother got sick. So I had to do it. So
then you had
this is funny. This is really funny. Anyway, I thought, how in the world am I going to get this clean? So we had a great big vat in the place outside. When we butcher, we'd get the water hot there to scrape
to butcher the pigs.
The pig, yeah. So we'd put the boys to put the water in there and put the wood underneath to heat the water, and bring the water to a boil. And my mother'd always put a tablespoon of lye, and it would bring the scum on top of the water. And she'd scrape all that off, and that water would be so soft, just like snow water.
Really?
The lye would do that. So then we take half of that water to put it in the wash tub to wash the clothes. And the other half we'd leave it in there to take the clothes, after we wash them, then we put them in there, you boil them, and to get them nice and white.
Ah. So you'd scrub them, and then you'd put them in the boiling water to boil.
Yes. Uh-huh. That's what we did.
How'd you keep your hands from burning up?
Many a time they were bleeding, I'm telling you, because my mother would, my mother got ill about that time, too. And she was in bed with double pneumonia for a whole month, and we couldn't move her because Dr. Hopkins was the doctor at that time. And so he would call and tell us what to do for her. And send medications up.
That was the house call, huh?
That was a house call. And this sounds odd, but anyway, he said, take groundhog oil and rub her chest. You know, my brothers used to go hunting for groundhog, and then melt it. You render that the fat, and then to rub her chest. When she tastes it, quit rubbing it, and that really.
When it permeated her skin enough for her to
taste. Well, when you can begin to taste it, you know, it goes into your
pores,
taste buds or the cords, and she could taste it, and so he says you quit using it now. So then it was all up to me to do all the work, the cooking and everything, because I was the oldest of the girls at home.
That was Vera Diemoz remembering her family's worst hard time. For more on Vera's story in the 1930s, please go to part 2 of this interview.